You're listening to A State of the Union, estate planning made simple. Here's your host, Brad Wiewel, from the Wiewel Law Firm in Austin, Texas.
Hi, this is Brad Wiewel. We are here with the State of the Union, our podcast from Texas Trust Law, which was formerly known as the Wiewel Law Firm, but we've changed our name to Texas Trust Law, and we can do that now because the law changed in July. And prior to July of 2021, lawyers always had to have the name of their law firm in the firm. So Smith, Brown, and Jones, or I don't know what, Black, White, and Green. Now we can have new names, and our new name is Texas Trust Law because Wiewel, hard to spell, hard to say. Texas Trust Law, easier to spell, easier to say. So you'll see that as we come along. And I am here today with this fantastic program. And I'm here to talk to Lina Supnet-Zapata, and she is a co-owner of Mir Consulting, and this is a senior care management company. And we talk about seniors a lot because I hate to tell you this and remind you, but we are all getting a little bit older and wiser, maybe. That's a little iffy sometimes. Maturity is comes and goes. I can still be fairly immature in a lot of stupid stuff, but I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm only 69, so I've got a little ways to go. Lina, it is a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, Brad.
Good, and we're going to talk about elder stuff. I said that,
Yes.
and maybe a little bit of special needs stuff, and maybe it's not our viewers or our listeners who are older. I always kind of consider myself like old is going to be 20 years older than me, right? So 89, right? There you go. Then I'll be old. But they may have older parents, they may have older loved ones. Why don't you, if you don't mind, give us an overview of what your company does, and then we'll get into what you do and how our viewers and listeners can benefit from knowing more about what's out there from a resource perspective.
Sure. Mir Care Consulting was established by my mother-in-law in 2005. We started in Nueces County, which is Corpus Christi and the Coastal Bend area. And we are air traffic control for adult children or spouses that are taking care of an aging relative or loved one. And there are a lot of moving pieces and parts when it comes to elder care. We don't get a lot of opportunity to do that on repeat. And so we are of the mindset that planning now for peace of mind later, and at least getting an idea of what your elder relative or whoever you're caring for wants for their long-term care. And so we are putting the plans together. We are often jumping into crisis situations because of lack of planning. And so we're trying to bring peace to a very chaotic, what could be a very chaotic situation, and guiding families to make recommendations so that we can have, their elders can have a peaceful, good quality of life for wherever they choose to live.
When they get to the point they can't really live on their own and can't really take care of themselves,
Correct.
which is what happened to my mom. She was healthy and wise, and less than 2 months before her 90th birthday had a stroke, and we realized she couldn't be cared for in her home. Her home was too small, and it was a home that was built in the 50s, and the doorways were too small, and we just didn't have the resources to completely redo it, and it was a challenge and a struggle, and it was stressful on the siblings' relationship too, trying to decide what's the best for her. One of the things I saw yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, I'm not sure if you saw it, was a story on how older children and older spouses have to take care of their much older parent or their spouse, and had a picture of a husband at 96 taking care of his 92-year-old mother, and another picture of a 82-year-old son taking care of his 100-year-old mother.
Yes.
You see that?
We see that a lot. Yes.
Okay, wow, wow. So let's try to break this down because there's so much into this. So Mir gets a call from a child, an adult child, about their concern about mom, dad, whatever, I mean, what happens at that point?
So when a potential client calls us, and a lot of times they're either local or they're out of state.
Sure, of course.
And who can be the eyes and ears from a professional lens to give some recommendations on what is happening in the home and kind of do a holistic approach to assessing all of the moving pieces and parts that can happen. And that includes legal, clinical, financial, psychosocial, safety, nutrition. So we're assessing all of these. My team is comprised of medical social workers, nurses, and private professional guardians. So our lens is different. We're certified, and we have just a very broad view. And what we're looking for are what do we see as a short-term goal, making recommendations, and then what could possibly happen down the road when it happens. For example, most of our clients want to live in the home environment.
Sure,
How
they
can
do.
we make that happen? Do we want to honor that quality of life and their wish to stay at home? However, there could be an event. They fall,
There you
they
go.
break their hip, they
Right.
go into the hospital. What is the next? What is the journey in the hospital? Getting treated, going to skilled nursing, and then what is going to be the step down or the long-term care situation. You have to combine that and balance that with what the family wants. You also have to
And maybe
combine that with the resources.
What they can afford.
Correct.
Sure.
And so taking that very broad perspective, and then also, those are just the logistics, but what about the emotional aspect? And so we are also hand-holding during that time and also giving them the reality. We don't have any investment with anybody or any referral fees from anyone that is an assisted living, home health, home care agency.
You're independent.
We're independent and we're driving the care because that's what the family wishes to do. We're not incentivized by.
Good.
They have to be a good extension of my practice, and they have to provide excellent care because that's what I expect for not only my own parents, but for our clients.
So you all aren't, if I understand it right, and ladies and gentlemen, I told Lina this morning that I deliberately didn't delve too deep into her company so that I could ask these questions as if I'm you, because I need to know this. You don't provide direct care, it doesn't sound like.
No, we are, as an attorney advises on legal, that's their
Right.
wheelhouse. We are advising on healthcare, psychosocial, community resources, and connecting, and have vetted all of those resources so that we are driving and making sure that it's quality, that they're going to do what they say, and holding those entities that are involved in this care village accountable for the care.
So we get calls here from out-of-state adult kids, local adult kids. Hey, mom or dad have had a problem. We need to find, or my spouse. Again, we're dealing a lot more with spouses, and one of the spouses is wobbly now, either physically wobbly and really can't take care of themselves, and the healthy spouse can't take care of them either.
Correct.
Or it's dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever. How do I find the right nursing home, the right assisted living? What's the difference in assisted living and independent living? Do you have resources that can guide people like that?
Yes, and we do guide individuals and family members that are taking care of an elder adult that has cognitive impairment, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's related
Right.
dementia. And so we have to advocate and make sure that the living arrangement and recommendation is appropriate to the level of care that client needs, okay? Oftentimes you'll say, oh, they can go into an independent living with caregivers, but you have to look at how cost exorbitant and it's not cost effective. And then they probably will have to move because the level of care is not appropriate. So we want to look at not just the immediate care situation, but what is going to happen down the road.
Right, because it tends to be a downward slope.
Right, and you look at that stress on the individual, the client that's going through the process, but what about everybody that surrounds?
Sure, because the mantra, the holy grail is I want to stay in my house.
Yes.
And again, that's a laudatory, and who wouldn't, but
Right.
it's not practical oftentimes.
Right, and you have to coach the family and saying, at some point, we're going to work to make sure that we can have this happen for as long as possible to live in their home, but there is going to become a time when we're going to have to move, and what's that going to look like?
Well, and what we see here, Lina, and ladies and gentlemen, we get the call from the kid who says, well, we need to get mom started on planning for Medicaid, or we need to start doing this work, and mom has got some money, dad has some money, and we ask them, well, do you have a power of attorney? Do you have a living trust? No, or they have an old one that doesn't really cover things like Medicaid planning and things like that.
Or it's in a lockbox.
Lockbox can't get it right, yeah. And she did one, we can't find it. You're right, if you don't have it,
Yes.
you don't have it.
Yeah.
And the frustrating thing for us is to tell that family, look, from an accessing of this information, this financial information, we may have to go to court and do a guardianship, because if you don't have the proper legal tools, and then the medical power of attorney, a living will pull the plug. The biggest one is a hip release, so the family can actually talk to the doctor. So these are things you need to plan for in advance as well, so you have the documents in place. And people say, well, mom will sign anything. May not know what she's signing. She'll sign anything. And we can't do that.
That's a whole another sticky
That's
situation.
another whole, we're not going to go in that.
Right.
Don't, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Nor is any good lawyer going to do that.
Right.
So how do you maybe navigate some of these complex and really emotional things? Because another thing we've seen is the good kid, the bad kid.
Yes. And that's a whole 3 segments, 4 segments.
We'll be back on that. We'll have another whole thing on the good kid, bad kid thing, because it's pretty common too.
Right, yes. So from the, as I had mentioned earlier, Brad, the holistic approach to our assessments include, do you have these documents
Sure.
in place? And if they don't, our circle of who we work with, we will call, your firm, someone within your firm, or other legal experts.
And Melissa Donovan, of course,
Yes.
is a certified elder
One of
law
my
attorney.
top go-tos.
Good.
And suggest that they consult and make sure that they're, not only that their powers of attorney and advance directives, all of those are up to date, and to have those reviewed.
Right.
And make sure that they're accessible, and make sure that whoever they're designating is the appropriate person.
Right.
And that the person you're designating is also, they know that they're being designated as not just because you're in the birth order.
That's just another thing, right. And birth order is such a compelling thing sometimes
Yes,
too. It may be the best way, but sometimes it's also use this term, the lazy way.
Right.
And I don't want to make anybody mad, and that's okay too. We don't want to make anybody mad, but we have to have the right people in place.
Right. Because at that time, if there's a crisis, some people can navigate and move forward with the wishes. Others have they just don't have the bandwidth to do that.
No, and they're busy.
Right.
And they're busy, and they have a family, and they have a work, and they have other things. And again, if you live out of state, I mean, one of the things that we put into all of our powers of attorney and our living trusts is that if you're an adult caregiver lives out of state, all their expenses will be paid to come here to take care of their loved one here.
Oh, that's good.
And if they lose time from work, they'll have that reimbursed to them. So they can come and not have to worry about breaking their own budget to get down here.
That's fantastic, because you hear this sibling dynamic, and I do everything, I pay for the
sure.
airfare, and I don't get any thanks, and I'm taking off work. So that's amazing. I think that's a wonderful thing to put.
We
in
do,
the
because
paperwork.
we don't, right. I mean, I'm the good kid, but I have to
Right.
live in Chicago.
Exactly. Wow, that's really impressive. I'm glid to hear that.
Yeah,
that you all do that.
yeah, we do that.
Yeah.
You've got a phrase here in the paperwork you gave me, which is something that Melissa Donovan's our certified elder law attorney, and she's in fact today taking 2 full days of continuing legal education on that subject. She knows a lot, but it's always good to learn more. But you've got here, and I'm sure she's familiar with this, I am not, aging life care professional. Mm-hmm. That's a new term to me, and I'm sure a new term to our listeners and viewers. What's an aging life care professional?
Well, being that I sit on the national board, the Aging Life Care Association and its professionals have been around for 35 years.
That's really interesting.
Yes.
Huh.
And the story there is that it started on the East Coast because the New Yorkers were going to Florida. The adult children were saying, who's going to take care of mom and dad when they go to Florida? I can't fly
I'm in
down
Long
there.
Island and they're in Tampa.
And
right.
so I would like to hire privately a social worker or a nurse to go and check in on mom. You know, if there's an emergency, then we've got our backup plan. So that kind of is how the profession. We are also known in the past as geriatric care managers.
Now, that's a term I'm familiar with.
Yes.
Geriatric care managers
Right.
are now aging life care professionals,
Correct.
which is it's easier to say.
It also covers a broad scope because many practices, such as myself, we not only do elder care, we do special needs, and we're also a guardianship program. So we're not pigeonholed into just geriatrics because we serve a wide population of individuals with, you know, different diseases and
Afflictions,
disabilities.
whatever. Right. And you mentioned special needs, so you could help a family that has a special need loved one, an adult child who,
Right.
again, we're running out of people to take care of them,
Right.
and frankly, I can't move them into my home because I have another life.
Right.
And
And
you can
you're-
help with placement or care in that situation
Correct,
too.
and working with the Medicaid waiver programs. You know,
Right.
there's so many things
Right,
that
there's
are
amazing.
that they're entitled to, and sometimes the families just don't know how to navigate that landscape. So our team knows how to do that.
Good.
Yes.
Because one false move with a distribution from a special,
You
from any kind of trust, you can disqualify
You can
them.
lose
Everything,
everything. And
right.
so sometimes families don't know that they're up against that, and
Right.
so that's where we can step in and be a support to them. Not only just from the financial perspective, but just education and hand-holding, because many of the special needs clients that we work with, they're single moms, or
Sure they are.
you know,
Sure,
or
we
they
do.
come from a place where they've never navigated that world
Mm-hmm.
before, and so we're there to help handhold and grow. I mean, many of our clients have been with us for over 10 years.
Wow.
That are special needs. They started
Sure,
as infant,
sure,
and then
sure,
we've seen
sure.
them
Okay.
grow and respond and adapt and provide things that they need as they grow and as
And again, right, life is not static.
right.
All right,
Exactly.
so you mentioned something that we talked about here in other podcasts a little bit, and this is the notion of a guardianship. So a guardianship, again, viewers and listeners, is where the disabled individual can't care for themselves either financially or they make their own medical decisions. If it's a minor child, then they can't raise themselves and they have to have a guardian to raise them until they're 18. But this is now, we're talking adults, so they can't make their own medical decisions. They can't make their own financial decisions, and they somehow missed the train when it came to financial powers of attorney, living trusts, and medical powers of attorney, and that sort of thing. And so we have to go to court, and we have to have the probate judge appoint some person or entity as the medical guardian, the guardian of the person, or the financial guardian, the guardian of the estate. And that is a challenging situation that we would hope most people wouldn't end up in, but they do all the time. There's an active docket at our local probate court on guardianships, and you have a reference here, Lina, that you are certified as a professional guardian.
Mm-hmm.
How does Mir work in that space?
So we have 6 certified private professional guardians that also hold certifications in nursing, case management, as well as social work. And so we only provide services for guardian of the person.
Okay, so that's the medical guardian. You're not
Right.
going to touch the money.
The well-being of the
Yeah.
well-being of the individual.
That's good to know, because that's usually the hardest role to fill.
Right.
We got trust companies that will serve as the guardian of the estate. They'll manage the money, they'll make the
Right.
distributions, but finding somebody to make these healthcare decisions, these living decisions, it's a pretty lean deal. So you guys
Yes.
do that.
So we do that as
Good.
a firm, and so we have 7 individuals that can respond accordingly. And so we work with the fiduciaries. We assess
Fiduciaries would be,
the trust officers or the individuals that are overseeing
The money.
the money part of
Sure.
things. But you know, many of our special needs or guardianship individuals, wards, clients.
So if you're in a guardianship, if you're the subject of the guardianship, you're called a ward.
Award.
W-A-R-D.
I like to use client, but
It's a nicer term. It's kind of an odd
softer
term.
Yeah, ward is.
I don't know where it comes from, but let's use the word client. What the
Yes.
heck?
So we assess the situation. We justify some of the expenses that are needed. We help navigate. We had just last week had an elderly client that was in the home, and she was not medication managed. She was wandering, going in and out of the house. We went to the court and said we'd like to request that she moves into a safer environment, and she transitioned beautifully, and she's medication managed. And
Good.
kind of the end result is, and it's ongoing, but kind of bring peace to otherwise
chaotic
a very
situation.
chaotic and dangerous
Absolutely.
situation. So that's kind of one example where our expertise and our knowledge and history of providing geriatric care management, special needs care management, lends to being a really good guardianship care manager.
Sure, it all
because we
fits
get
together.
deep in the weeds. It's not
Right.
just about checking boxes and that we fulfilled our quarterly or monthly, but it's looking and seeing and making sure that things that the client needs are in place and holding those entities accountable, whether that's in the home or in the nursing home or in the assisted living or wherever they
Because I was driving down I-35 last evening. Big sign outside of a plaintiff's lawyer's office. We sue for nursing home negligence, whatever. I mean, that's what it is. And you guys can monitor the care.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Home, yes, yes.
Okay. I mean, because that's, I think as an adult child, that's really almost the scariest part. You're putting your adult parent in a completely strange environment, something
Yes.
maybe if you've ever been to a nursing home, you were in to see a loved one and out as fast as you could.
Right, right.
And now you put mom, dad in there, and what's going to happen, and how do I know what the reputation of this thing is, and all that? And you guys
Right,
could.
and that's our job to, the good, the bad, and the not so good.
Sure, of course.
We're saying here's the reality also of the situation.
Right.
Sometimes it's not everything that you think it is, and so working with the family to kind of get them to understand, what is happening. We're dealing with a very short labor force right now in the caregiving situation.
Well, we have a short labor force here too.
Yeah, and
yes,
that
we
takes
understand
effect in the staffing
Sure.
in a nursing facility. And so, and the expectations, sometimes we have to be very realistic about what to expect. Because if you think of they're expecting something else, it's going to lead to disappointment.
Right,
And
and frustration, and
Yeah.
at some point anger
Right.
too.
And when we're involved, there's a little bit more complacency. I mean, there's less complacency. It's more like, okay, they've got a professional group coming in here.
Right.
And so we're going to be
Well,
at attention.
sure, of course,
and
of
making
course.
sure that things are
Somebody's minding the store.
Correct.
Right, and the
Yes.
adult child who, again, may live here but can't see mom but maybe once a week or more infrequently.
Right.
Or, again, the special needed adult loved one. You guys can, again, make sure T's are crossed, I's are
Right.
dotted, care is being given the right
Right.
way.
And COVID really shed light on that. You have life, you're working at home with your spouse, you're bound to the house, and then you have your loved one in a nursing community. And then the COVID protocols for every nursing facility or long-term care community, there's a different protocol. They
Sure,
handle it
everyone,
differently.
everyone,
And how
sure,
do you navigate all
sure.
of that? So it was really 100 different ways that people handle and interpret CDC guidelines
Right,
and things
sure,
like that.
sure,
So
sure.
so that was a lot of things. Those were a lot of things that we had to navigate for our clients who had loved ones in communities.
How soon should somebody contact you? I mean, at what point would be the optimal point for you all to get involved?
Well, I have a colleague and an owner of a company that does what I do, and I heard her speak, and she said it should be the 40-70 rule. When you're in your 40s and your parents are in your 70s, that's the time to have the conversation, or at least start. And it's not an overnight conversation. It is ongoing, because usually when an adult child approaches an elder parent and they say, hey, you want to talk about your long-term care? You think they're
Get
going to
the
welcome
hell
it?
out, get
Yeah,
out.
you want to welcome me with open arms? No, it's going to be... and
You're going to put me in a nursing home, I know you.
Exactly. And sometimes leveraging in the sibling dynamic, the one that has that kind of softer approach that
Yes,
mom and dad are more
right,
receptive
right,
to,
right.
And then to talk with all of the siblings and say this is the game plan, to be all on the same page,
Right.
because you will soon find out, especially in crisis, that not everybody's on the same page.
Oh, I'm sure that's right.
So it's better to have that conversation earlier.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so 70-ish, so I'm 69, and I've got one of our sons, Zach, is here. He's 26, and he's, we haven't had the conversation yet, but
Right.
we'll probably do that in the next year or two.
Right,
Just to
right.
kind of, and Cindy has already thought about some things. So,
You don't want to put them in a position where they're like, I don't know what mom and dad
again,
want.
and now they can fight. Right. What
Yeah.
we tell people is that the essence of a good estate plan, and in essence a good care plan, is that things are structured in such a way to minimize points of friction
Yes.
between children.
Right.
Because one false move and there's a blow up, and I was talking to somebody yesterday and there was a blow up in their family. Never speak to that sibling
Right.
again, ever.
And it's generational. If that first generation doesn't speak, guess what? The next generation
cousins
of
are gonna know
cousins
each
are not
other.
going to
No,
speak.
they're not gonna speak either,
And so
right.
you really have control on making it the best for a generational and a legacy for your family by putting these things into place ahead of time.
Okay, you've got another question here. We're not running short on time, but I want to be efficient with our time.
Yes, sir.
Do you provide after-hours or on-call service? Do you?
Yes, we
Okay.
are on call 24/7.
Wow.
So after hours and on the weekends, I will say our team does a really good job that our phone is not ringing after hours.
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
Yes.
that's you don't want it to ring,
Yes.
but if it rings, somebody will pick up.
Because I'm on call, so I know who's calling.
Boy, that's always a nice little thing, right?
Yes. So, if somebody's out of town and they have their loved one goes to the hospital, we're the holders of other information. We have their medical records,
Sure.
we have their medication list, and so we can actually go to the hospital, talk to the hospital personnel, and then in the meantime, contact the family in Aruba and say, listen, everything's under control. Don't
Right.
worry. Don't jump on a plane. Here's the status. If you need to come, we'll let you know.
Okay, so let me
Yeah.
go to the next step because if people are kind of going, okay, how do you bill for your services?
So we charge by the hour,
Okay.
but by 15-minute increments.
All right, sure.
And so
That's how we do it too.
Yes, and so usually what we're doing is let's start with a consultation. Let's put a care plan together with our recommendation, put pen to paper. Here are all of the resources, and then we give this deliverable, and then you can navigate it on your own if you wish. However, we find that a 20-page document with a lot of lists of things to do is overwhelming,
Sure.
so we'll do a hybrid approach and work with them. But that means that it's more cost efficient because they know they can pick and choose and say, I can do this, but Lina and Mir team, I want you to work on this.
Okay, sure. And
Yeah.
then when the loved one crosses a divide or another step down the ladder, you guys can then step in and help with that
Right,
too.
it's all customized to
Because I don't need to name a facility now.
Right.
But
when the time comes, I want you all
Right.
to help transition.
that's right. Because if I pick one today, brand new today,
Right.
10 years from now, it's 10 years old.
Right,
And there's another
and
new
you
one.
might not have the same leadership in
Yeah,
place, which
sure,
is very
that's
important.
really good. Well, of course, that's right. I mean, these are companies, they change employees, they
Right.
change management,
Exactly.
and things go up or they go down. That's
Exactly.
really interesting.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Wow, good stuff. One last question on here. Are
Yes,
you
sir.
bonded and insured?
Yes, we are.
All right, very
we
good.
carry a lot of coverage.
Okay, we do too. We
Yes.
do,
And then
right.
also with the certification of nursing and social work, they also
Right.
hold their own liability.
Well, and you've got, again, right, you've got responsibilities through the state
Correct.
and the
Right.
probate courts and all that too.
Absolutely.
So, well, very good.
Absolutely.
This is great. This is so nice.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having
What
me.
an exciting thing and what a necessary thing. I mean, one of two things is going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, and we kind of know this, but let's just be blunt. We are either going to drop dead or we're going to linger. And as we linger, the lingering can be, again, we may die early in the lingering process, we may die later in the lingering process, but getting a grip on this and getting our heads around it and the reality of that it will happen is just so important. And, deer in headlights is an awful place to be. And that's where, again, confusion, frustration, expense, liability and family dynamics can come in and crush the whole thing. So is there a local number somebody could call?
Sure, 512-975-2444.
And your website?
www.mircareconsultants.com.
There you go. Very good. Very good. Lina, fantastic.
Thank you so much.
What a
for
good
having
little,
me.
good thing to know. Really good thing to know. We're going to post
you.
this, and you can listen to it again. You can share this, and I recommend everybody who's watching or listening, share this interview with your friends and family members too, because this is invaluable information. We will be back with another episode of the State of the Union soon, and we appreciate you watching and listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.